Good day, everybody. Today we're going to be taking a look at WipEout 2048 for the PlayStation Vita. So let's jump right on in. As most of you know, WipEout is a PlayStation mainstay. It's been around since the absolute beginning of the PlayStation brand, since 1995. Then eventually Sony picked up the developer, and it's been an exclusive franchise for Sony pretty much ever since. And it's also helped launch the PlayStation Portable, the PS Vita. There's also versions on the PS2 and of course on the PlayStation 3. So how does this version stack up? Well, let's take a look and break it down. I think the absolute best feature in WipEout 2048 is the competitive spirit that I find has been infused perfectly in the game. From the moment you launch anything from the offline to online to anything in between, you're going to constantly see the progression that your friends have been making in the game. It'll say player X has beat you, let's say, has beat you 12 seconds in this lap, or has, I don't know, finish a combat challenge 27 points ahead of you, stuff like that. It gets really, really, not annoying, but it's good, it's addictive, and you're gonna constantly have these pop-ups making you, really want to get better and better at the game, forcing you to practice. I find it gets annoying because I have this one friend in particular who's just so good at this game, and every time I look, it's like, wow, they beat me by 47 seconds in a race. It's like, wow, I totally suck. A lot of good though with the game. Seriously, a lot of things the developers did right. The user interface, it's based on a grid, which you'll see in the video. And I really like it. It's all touch screen. Everything's really easy, really smooth, very user-friendly. Just going ahead and just, clicking what you want. The campaign itself is broken up into 3 different seasons, and they can be quite challenging as you make your progression through the game. There's also an online campaign mode, which we'll touch on in just a sec. Crossplay took me a little while to figure out how exactly to set this up, but once I had gone through the ropes, it's actually quite interesting. It allows you to play with WipEout HD Fury players on the PlayStation 3, and there was no noticeable lag, although they're playing at 60 frames per second and you're playing at 30 frames per second, meaning that their animations are just a little bit smoother, but that has nothing to do with the actual smoothness of the latency. The hovercrafts or racers or whatever you want to call them are just as tight and responsive as ever. This is the type of game that it's really unique compared to all the other racers out there, so it takes a lot of practice and patience to get good with just staying sort of in a straight line, using the air brakes, because when you're new at the series, you'll be slamming into walls and other vehicles all over the place, as you're going to see in this video, because not so much that I'm a noob at it, but just it's very difficult to capture the footage in just a very fast-paced game like this. I find other things that were done really well include just a variety of vehicles. There's several different types. You have speed types, you have armor or combat ready vehicles, then you've got hybrids and prototypes, and each ship is specifically designed for a certain type of event, and by mastering each, you'll master the whole game. Race pads are always important, and this one they've been broken up a little bit differently. You now have offensive and defensive item pads, which do, pretty well self-explanatory, and then of course you got not shield boost, but speed boost. Overall, I found the events to be quite entertaining. You've got your standard races, time trials, there's the combat, and of course the most challenging is the survival zone. There's not too much in the form of variety because there's not too many tracks, but I found for what it offers, it's sufficient. 2048 also features incredible graphics that do a good job of blending sort of the high-tech futuristic tracks with a more modern setting. And like I mentioned before, it's locked in at 30 frames per second, so the animations aren't quite as fluid as they were on the PlayStation 3 WipEout games. The soundtrack, as always, is absolutely fantastic and features all kinds of groups like the Prodigy, Underworld, and the Chemical Brothers, so nothing to complain about there. Now, for the so-so, the online campaign I found is fun, but it can take quite a while to get connected sometimes. Instead of selecting events like you would in the single-player campaign, you're basically just dropped right away into the thick of things. You select where you need to go to advance in your sort of, it's hard to explain this, there's sort of like rounds. There's 20 online rounds, and you can just sort of select an event, but the events are completely random. It's sort of just your winning parameters that vary depending on where your rank is online. You'll see videos of it as I go, mainly of me just waiting. And while I appreciate what the developers did with the Vita's touchscreen and the gyroscope for alternative to an analog and face buttons, the end result is just nowhere near accurate enough for this type of racer. But still, it's nice that they tried something. And I found that there's just not enough courses in the game. A lot of them, well, some of them have been recycled from the previous games, and while the newer ones are quite nice, I just find that a little bit more could have went, could have helped out. Alright, the bad. This is the stuff you guys love. Well, basically, the question I have is, where the heck are all the online features? I was really surprised with that. If you want to just jump online with a buddy and say race, you can't do that. You only have your option to go to the online campaign. And like I said, you're just automatically thrown into the thick of things, which was really, really disappointing that they couldn't have had just any sort of online multiplayer mode where you could just play with a friend and do whatever the heck you want. And what's even more baffling is that the ad hoc local multiplayer works exactly the same. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, how can you have a combat mode with just 2 players going around? You know, it seems really, really strange that there's no multiplayer options whatsoever for customization. It's really, really odd. And by far the worst aspect of this game is the loading. Now, I know a lot of you guys out there, you're probably huge WipEout fans and going to say, oh, come on, I'm being harsh and whatever, but, you know, you got to think that this was designed as a portable game, and a portable game shouldn't take over a minute to do its initial boot, and then on average 45 seconds to load up new events. And I actually timed this, and this is on the new download, which was supposed to fix the loading, so I can only imagine how bad it was originally. And that's inexcusable for a cart-based game. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. There's no information that needs to be accessed and wait for the laser to go and cache the data and whatever. So that was really, really disappointing. But outside of the loading and the lack of the multiplayer options, WipEout 2048 is a very, very fun game. It's just, I'm hoping that the developers are able to release a couple of updates and fix some of the other problems. So, hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll be back soon with another review. Take care.